And if you can't compete against that unless a homeowner says, I'm not going to sell to one of you, I'm going to sell to a single buyer. A single buyer.
Right. So, Roland, it's a number of things here. Number one, thanks for bringing the sister on, Courtney Johnson Rose, to deal with this issue. So you're absolutely correct. Vice President Kamala Harris had a plan to build 3 million new homes in the first 4 years. Also, one of the things that she talked about, and Black Enterprise had an article dealing with this. Here's how Vice President Kamala Harris's economic plan would help Black Americans. She would also crack down, stop Wall Street investors from buying and marking up in bulk homes. OK, we've talked about this here on this show and how this is buying up stock and it drives up the value of homes. Also, she had a plan for down payment assistance for first time home buyers, $25,000 down payment support. Now, the Biden-Harris administration, starting on day one with Executive Order 13985, that this Luciferian convicted felon just revoked this week. OK, that was dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and focusing on rooting out systemic discrimination in various agencies within the government. One of the things they were focusing on is assisting Black landowners in resolving title issues, and this deals with heirs' property. And heirs property is one of the heirs property loophole is one of the ways we have historically had land stolen from us, especially when we own land like farmland that was handed down from generation to generation and it had multiple owners. So what happened was if one speculator bought the land from a portion of the land from one of those landowners, like in the family, because of this loophole, it gave them the ability to take over more of that land. And a lot of us didn't understand this. It wasn't handed down properly, just like you said. They're dealing with the title deeds, things of this nature. We didn't understand it. So the Biden-Harris administration, this is one of the initiatives they were cracking down on and helping African Americans hold on to land. Well, a lot of these initiatives are being reversed this week. And a lot of our people didn't even know what's taking place. So this has been a devastating week. When you look at all these executive orders and initiatives that this person, that Donald Trump has put in place, this has set us back decades.
Folks, home ownership, significant issue in this country. I have been telling y'all this for the last 5 years, that the problem in America is low housing stock. As a result of low housing stock, the current homes have dramatically increased. Guess what? We now have nearly a 30-year low in terms of the sale of homes. They fell last year. A lack of available inventory and rising borrowing costs have prevented many individuals, including African Americans, who are ready to buy a home from getting one. Dr. Courtney Johnson Rose, president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, joins us right now. Here's what jumps out. During the campaign, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't hear no housing plan from the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon in chief Donald Trump. I heard a housing plan from Vice President Kamala Harris. Have you seen one from Trump and MAGA?
Vice President Harris had a plan to build millions of houses, which is what we need in this country, millions of homes to fill this gap. But no, I did not see a housing plan. And this week, with all of the executive orders going on, I haven't seen any executive orders focused on housing in this crisis in America.
So how do we deal with this? Because, again, this is the thing. People were angry and upset during the election, complaining about the cost of housing, rent being too high. And the reality is, this is not that hard. We are millions short in terms of housing stock. We did not build enough homes between 2010 and 2020. We have not built enough homes since 2021. And so we're at a deficit. You take that with also baby boomers choosing to stay in their homes, first of all, living longer, not moving into nursing homes, not moving in with family. All of these things contribute to the issue. And so it's not necessarily rising interest rates, because if interest rates were low, you still don't have enough houses.
You don't have a house. You don't have enough houses. One more thing that we have to add to that, particularly in our community, Roland, we see institutionalized investors buying up the available housing stock. I'm in Houston, your hometown. Last year, we had almost 20% of the housing stock, particularly in our communities, that were being bought up by institutionalized investors. So you add that to the pot as well, and you just don't have enough inventory.
So what do we do? I mean, at the end of the day, unless you have an aggressive federal housing plan, even though the federal government doesn't build houses, there has to be incentives on that level. But you also have got to make changes on a local level when it comes to local laws.
Yes. So one, incentives. You are 100% right. We have to be able to incentivize builders to be able to go out and build housing. In addition to that, we also have an aging housing stock. So we also have a problem in our communities that there's homes that are sitting there that are blighted, that are not able to be habitated by families. We need to have more renovation products. Cities, municipalities can help with this also too, to bring these homes that are again, out of the housing stock back in. We also have in our neighborhoods a lot of infill lots that have never been built on, but there's hard regulations and zoning laws that keep those homes from being able to be built. So again, it has to be a concerted effort. You're right, it has to be federal with incentives. It has to be local and statewide also to help us overcome this particular crisis.
Do you have any hope that this administration, Republicans controlling the House and the Senate, are going to do anything about housing? Because I haven't heard nothing. I mean, I haven't heard anything. I heard complaints, heard them blame Biden-Harris. I've heard nothing else.
It's so disappointing because this is not just a Black problem. It is an American problem. And housing is the fundamental thing that everyone needs. It's the equalizer, if you will. And for us in our community, it's particularly troubling because it's our number one way to build wealth. This is the part that's so devastating to Roland, is that our State of Housing and Black America report for NARAP shows that there are 2 million mortgage-ready Black consumers. That means they have the income, they have the credit, but there's no house available for them to buy in inventory. Our data also shows that there's 5.4 million Black Americans that are almost mortgage ready or near mortgage ready as well. So the marketplace for us to be able to build wealth is tremendous, but now we need the opportunity. NARAP recently began our NARAP Developers Academy, where we have, and this year we'll graduate 250 Black developers out of our Developers Academy. We are very intentional about this, and our developers are being trained to go into their communities, into urban communities across America, to build homes. So we're going to have to do it ourselves for our communities. We're going to have to rehab the homes ourselves in our community, but we need HUD. We need Fannie, we need Freddie, we need incentives, we need cities, we need CDBG dollars. We have to be able to have the incentives, to your original point, to be able to put these houses on the ground that our community needs.
And of course, the problem you have right now is you do not have an administration that cares about specifically dealing with the problem for African Americans. And so it's not like you're going to see federal incentives specifically targeting African Americans when they're trying to get rid of anything that deals with the issue of diversity and equity.
Equity, inclusion on it. And the other biggest problem, I can't stress on this enough, is we have to advocate, and NARAB is getting very serious about this in 2025, against institutionalized investors. This is a huge problem, and they target our communities. A house goes on the market that could be a perfect home for a first-time home buyer. But instead of that first-time home buyer having the opportunity to buy that house, they get outbid by an investor that's buying cash, by an investor that doesn't need any inspections, by an investor that doesn't need an appraisal, by an investor that's buying cash, by an investor that doesn't need any inspections, by an investor that doesn't need an appraisal, and that can close in 2 weeks. We cannot compete with that. So even if the inventory is there, we have to stop and advocate against these institutionalized.
So how do we do it? So what does that look like? Is there any city?
Yes.
Is there any city or state that actually has put something in place to do what we're talking about?
Yeah, so there is some legislation, and we believe also too that this could be, Roland, a bipartisan issue. There's been some legislators on both the Republican and Democratic side that have now paid attention to institutionalized investors. Second piece that we're excited about that's plaguing our communities is heirs property. We have a course that we do with the National Bar Association called What to Do with Big Mama's House, because a lot of these homes that are being taken advantage of by investors are heirs property. It's properties that your grandmother used to have, but it wasn't passed down properly with the paperwork. So the family gets taken advantage of because they have not done the proper paperwork and probates and things of that nature to keep the property in the family. So we're excited that Representative Nikema Williams has an heirs property bill. Representative Emmanuel Cleavers has a Good Deed Act bill also too. So we are in support of these bills that help families work through their heirs properties issues so they don't get taken advantage of from institutionalized investors also.
Well, again, something actually has to happen in this particular area.
It's a state of emergency.
Right, it's a huge state of emergency. And again, numerous stories have been done. We've been talking about this here. Go to my iPad. This story is from 2 years ago, where MetLife Development said by 2030, in 5 years, Wall Street investors will be owning 40% of all single-family homes, and their desire is not to sell. Their desire is to rent.
Keep us renters.
There you go. That's what the goal is.
Keep us renters. And this is the thing, too, when you look at housing prices, it's a supply and demand issue. So the less inventory that we have, it will cause the housing prices to keep rising and rising and rising and making homeownership even more unattainable. So the idea, the concept, the emergency is to put more inventory on the ground. We have to be able to incentivize investors to actually do that.
All right, then. We certainly appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Courtney Johnson Rose. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We appreciate you, Roland.
Thank you. And I bring my panel, Michael Imhotep, host African History Network show out of Detroit. Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, co-founder and editor-in-chief, Max Black's Media out of D.C., Matt Manning, civil rights attorney out of Corpus Christi. Michael, I'll start with you. Go to my iPad, Henry. This is the same story that came from 2021. This is what it says, that MetLife Investment Management, citing a report from Yardi Matrix, said that at that time, Wall Street, SFRs, owned 700,000 single-family residences. That was 5% of the national housing stock. Now, this is in 2021. They estimated by 2030. Now, again, this story was dropped. You see, this was dropped right here, y'all. You see, August 17th, 2022. They said August of 2022, these Wall Street institutions own 5% of the nation's housing stock. They said 8 years later, Michael, that number jumps to 40%, roughly 7.6 million homes. That is insane. And the point that you just heard Dr. Rose say, which is the problem, and listen, I deal with this every day. My phone, I get text messages, I get phone calls. How much you want to sell? How much you want to sell? Because the home that my homestead in Texas, which I've owned since 1999, they blow my phone up trying to buy it, and I'm like, no, I'm not selling it. But again, it's easier for them, and these are people who are not in the area. They're just simply looking at the sheet. They live in other parts of the country, and they're just grabbing homes. And if you can't compete against that unless a homeowner says, I'm not going to sell to one of you. I'm going to sell to a single buyer.
Right. So, Roland, it's a number of things here. Number one, thanks for bringing the sister on, Courtney Johnson Rose, to deal with this issue. So you're absolutely correct. Vice President Kamala Harris had a plan to build 3 million new homes in the first 4 years. Also, one of the things that she talked about in Black Enterprise had an article dealing with this. Here's how Vice President Kamala Harris's economic plan would help Black Americans. She would also crack down, stop Wall Street investors from buying and marking up in bulk homes. OK, we've talked about this here on this show and how this is buying up stock and it drives up the value of homes. Also, she had a plan for down payment assistance for first time home buyers, $25,000 down payment support. Now, the Biden-Harris administration, starting on day one with Executive Order 13985, that this Luciferian convicted felon just revoked this week. OK, that was dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and focusing on rooting out systemic discrimination in various agencies within the government. One of the things they were focusing on is assisting Black landowners in resolving title issues, and this deals with heirs property. And heirs property is one of the heirs property loophole is one of the ways we have historically had land stolen from us, especially when we own land like farmland that was handed down from generation to generation and it had multiple owners. So what happened was if one speculator bought the land from a portion of the land from one of those landowners, like in the family, because of this loophole, it gave them the ability to take over more of that land. And a lot of us didn't understand this. It wasn't handed down properly, just like you said. They're dealing with the title deeds, things of this nature. We didn't understand it. So the Biden-Harris administration, this is one of the initiatives they were cracking down on and helping African Americans hold on to land. Well, a lot of these initiatives are being reversed this week. And a lot of our people didn't even know was taking place. So this has been a devastating week. When you look at all these executive orders and initiatives that this person, that Donald Trump has put in place, this has set us back decades, just what happened this week.
So here's what I find to be quite hilarious, Avis. I'm looking at this story here. Go to my iPad, Henry. This guy, John Burns, CEO of John Burns Real Estate Consulting. He says in an article that conversations around institutional ownership need to be more balanced. Our surveys show the majority of home renters today want to become homeowners at some point, but cannot right now for a variety of reasons that have less to do with the price of the home and more to do with their desire to settle down and stay in one place right now. Many people relocate, get divorced, etc., and want to rent a home for the time being. They may have kids, a pet, and a lot of stuff that won't live well in an apartment. But this is what I love right here. Additionally, Burns said large owners provide a better tenant experience than smaller landlords. They eliminate the fear of being forced to move if the owner sells the home and provides far better customer service and maintenance, he told Multifamily Dive. This is why this is a joke. Most people out here ain't trying to sit here to buy homes and rent. They're not. They're actually just trying to buy a home. The issue we have here are people who want to buy a home cannot. And as a result, what we're seeing is, one, the homes that are being rented are sky high. Apartments are sky high because the owners know they can't go anywhere. And you can't even talk about a homeless problem in America unless you deal with the problem of low home ownership.
Absolutely. And the challenge is right now we have an administration in that just doesn't give a damn in terms of what this would mean for everyday folk who would like to be able to buy a home or would like to be able to at least not have their rents escalate up the wazoo because you have people who are basically overtaking the market. So they know that they are basically holding them hostage. And so what we have then is an administration that is going to do everything possible to double down on this problem. And it's especially disturbing because, as was just laid out so beautifully, the alternative was clear. The alternative was clear and different, night and day difference between what we have right now. But until we get past at least the first years and maybe even 4 full years of this foolishness, I don't see how we pull ourselves out of this, to be perfectly honest.
Here's the thing that I think people have to understand, Matt. There's an ebb and flow in our society. So, for instance, when you look at customer service jobs, Walmart greeters, when you look at fast food jobs, waiters, waitresses, things along those lines. Those have always considered to be transient jobs that, frankly, folks who are younger and less education typically are filling. Okay. And then there's an expectation that as you grow older, you become more mature, you move into other areas. And it used to be, we had jobs like grocery cashiers, we had jobs like bank tellers. You had what I call those jobs in the middle. And so they were not white collar jobs, they were not blue collar jobs, but they were sort of right there in the middle. And so you sort of just graduate. Well, those jobs, technology just has wiped those jobs away. So now the people who would normally be in that middle tier, and they don't have the education to be in the upper tier. So what happens is they now fall to the lower tier jobs, which means that the people who normally would occupy the lower tier jobs, there's nothing below them. Well, if you look at the housing, it's the exact same thing. You have a natural transition. That is, you turn 18, 20, 21, you leave your parents' home, then you get your own apartment. You live in that apartment, and then you may decide to say, you know what, I'm going to go live in a apartment that's a much better apartment, or I'm going to actually become a renter of a home to become a homeowner. Well, the problem that we have right now is because if you're locked out of home ownership, then you're right there in the middle. You're a home renter. And then the people who are naturally coming forward, because your population has increased, who should be coming into apartments, they can't get into apartments because the people in the middle are now in apartments. And so now, again, that middle is cut out. That's what people have to understand we deal with. You have this natural transition that happens in life. And when you wipe out that middle part, or the top part, you're now forced. So now you have younger people who have no place to live. Now it's like living with family, or you have folks, and I've talked to numerous folks who are college graduates who are living 3, 4 to an apartment. It's like commune living, and you have policymakers who do not want to deal with this because Republican policymakers, they are completely in bed with Wall Street. They have no problem with Wall Street owning 40% of all single-family homes. And unless that is dealt with, then we're going to truly have a national crisis in 5 years.
When you look at the people who attended the inauguration and where they sat in proximity to the president, I mean, that asserts your point. When you look at, these titans of industry who are all now capitulating to Mr. Trump, excuse me, because they're worried about their bottom dollar, I think that goes to your point. And, I'm really glad you talked about policy, because that's part of what I was thinking in, some of the prior conversation on this. Is one of the big issues is that this is just unfettered capitalism. We don't have local governments and state governments who are doing anything to tamp this down. I like the idea that, Vice President Harris had a plan to build a record number of houses. But the problem with that is none of that matters if you don't have other controls that keep the prices within people's reach, to your point. And that's part of the issue. Is I think there's should be incumbent on our local governments to put things in place for people to keep the houses that they have. My dad has a church in one of the wealthiest parts of Austin. That part of Austin used to be an enclave for newly freed people, right? So a lot of his parishioners own homes that are extremely valuable, and they are among the most valuable property in the city of Austin, but they can't keep them because of taxes. Has the city of Austin implemented anything for those people to keep their houses?
Yep.
No.
Yep.
Right. No, and they know not only are houses, extreme asset, and that's the way that most people have built financial stability and financial wealth in this country, but that's a prime example. How do you not have, just as a matter of course, policy that says here are people who've had Big Mama's house, to use Dr. Rose's term, passed down for 3 or 4 generations. They're now in a point where their wages don't match their taxes, and therefore they can't keep the house. As a matter of course, we need to do something to allow people to be able to keep these homes. So some of this is policy driven and the lack of policy, and some of it is just unfettered capitalism. And frankly, housing as a commodity, we need to have a conversation, which we often have on this show. There are just some mores that we as society have allowed to be overrun. Housing, healthcare, some of the other things that we need just as a course through the course of our lives should not be commodified to the point that Wall Street titans can own 40% of the stock of single family residences. But until, we change as a society in terms of not allowing pass of certain guardrails, if you will, in our society, then we're going to have crises like this that will be exacerbated by politicians who want to kiss Mr. Trump's butt.
Or as Julian Melville calls it, predatory capitalism.
Support the African History Network, $, the AHN Show, through Cash App, through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN Show. Thanks, Marsha, for the support. Here's our QR code for Cash App right here, the bottom of the screen. The information is also on our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online classes that I teach. We do the classes live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. So you can go back and watch it anytime. You don't have to join us live in the class. And then you can download you can order my DVD lectures and digital downloads of my presentations as well. So that all will help you and help us as well. Yeah, we know African American History Month is coming up also. And let's go to this here. Let's go to the website. Hold on. Let me flip over to this one last time. Follow us. I just shut down I just deactivated my TikTok account because I ain't doing TikTok. Maybe if it's sold to an American company, if it's sold to Mark Zuckerberg, that punk mother Zucker, I don't know if I'll go back to it. I'm not sure. But I have downloaded Fanbase, so I'm setting up Fanbase also. Everybody download Fanbase, set that up. That's an African American owned and operated social media platform owned by Isaac Hayes III. Okay, so you can support us here. Register for the online classes I teach Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Register right here for it. You can do a debit card, credit card, or PayPal. Download the our class lesson plan here. We have our Cash App right here, $, the AHN Show. So if you type it into Cash App, type in the full tag, $, the AHN Show, SHOW, because there's some fake ones out there, and they'll come up before you type in all of it. Okay, ours, it will say Michael, and it may show my picture there. Okay. So we have a QR code here, and this shows it also right here, this graphic here. And then paypal.me / the AHN Show through PayPal. And I know through PayPal, you can set it up for a recurring contribution if you want to. We definitely appreciate that as well. I can't remember if you can do that, set up for a recurring contribution through Cash App. Okay. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Hopefully you learned a lot today, because this is a lot of work to put all this together. Hopefully you learned a lot today. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. And I got to give a shout out to my sisters at Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. They just had the 105th Founders Day, January 16th, 2025. They were founded January 16th, 1920, Howard University. And my brothers of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, we just had our 111th Founders Day, January 9th, 2025. All right. All right. Talk to y'all later. Peace. Remember, right now is correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next.